I'm Howard Phillips Lovecraft, and here we are at the end of our 5th anniversary short story competition, and what a journey it's been. I want to thank you, those of you who have been watching, those of you who have been commenting, and particularly those of you who submitted. Not everyone could win, of course, but every one of your stories was an absolute delight, and I am honored that you considered this program worthy of submission. It has been an unbelievable 5 years. I had no idea what would happen when I first stepped foot in front of this camera to start offering some, well, questionable advice to those in need. This life after death is not as anyone could have predicted, but it has been enchanting, in large part thanks to you. And so, with no further ado, allow me to announce the grand prize winner, Mr. GK Lomax, with his delightful tale, Bartie Lovecraft and the Five-Headed Beast of Wattlesham. I was lost when I chanced upon Wattlesham, so I only know that it's somewhere in Essex. Strange news comes out of that country, earthquakes, sea serpents, and goodness knows what. Whenever I'm obliged to pass through, I do as speedily as possible. On this occasion, however, I had missed my road and found myself steering the Bentley along narrow corkscrew lanes that might have been designed to entrap the unwary. Eventually, I pulled over. "Greaves," I said, "I think we're lost." "It would seem so, sir," Greaves replied stoically. Greaves meets every circumstance with unruffled sang-froid, though it's understood that whenever I land myself in the soup, it's up to him to haul me out again. "I confess, sir, that I cannot pinpoint our current location with exactitude," he said, "but I observe that we recently passed close by a place of habitation where we might make enquiries." "Or find a bed for the night," I said, nodding towards the setting sun. "We may chance upon an inn, sir," Greaves said, sounding considerably less than charmed at the prospect, "but I fear it is unlikely to be very comfortable." "Possibly not," I said, "but I would prefer an inn, however humble, to a haystack." The light was almost gone when we reached Wattlesham. We learned its name from a hand-painted sign we could just read in the gloom, but that was just about all we did learn about the place. It was ancient, to the extent it seemed an intrusion to park the Bentley on its only street. Rather than 1926, I felt as though we'd been transported back to 1826, or even 1626. In other circumstances, such a village might have struck one as charming. Wattlesham, however, was redolent of poverty and decay. Every cottage was ramshackle, verging on derelict. Every piece of thatch was dank and rotting. Every door was warped and ill-fitting. Every garden was choked with weeds, and the whole place was eerie and depressing. And deserted. Not a soul to be seen. I called out a couple of times, feeling distinctly uneasy. I received no reply. "There's no one about," I said eventually. "It would seem not, sir." "Rum, what?" "Unusual, sir, certainly." "No inn, not even a convenient haystack? Hang on, though. What's that?" A light had appeared in the distance. It grew rapidly, and I perceived it to be a bonfire. My spirits rose a notch. "That's where everyone is," I said. "It must be some sort of festival. Come along." To my surprise, Greaves seemed reluctant to comply. "I'm not sure it would be wise to intrude, sir," he intoned. "Why ever not?" I asked. "It might be quite jolly." "There is that possibility, sir, but other factors ought perhaps to be considered. Today's date, for example." "Today's date? It's May Day. We've just come from Aunt Augusta's annual bash with dancing round the maypole and everything." "True, sir," Greaves pronounced sagaciously, "but once darkness falls on May Day, some recognize a darker festival known as Beltane." "Beltane?" I asked. "What's that?" "An ancient pagan rite, sir," Greaves told me. "I'll skip the details, but Beltane's supposed to be one of those nights beloved of witches, the occult. Greaves is knowledgeable about such things, but my desire for lodgings made me overrule him. There was a festival of some sort, but jolly it was not. Round the bonfires the villagers clustered, chanting and swaying. I don't know what they were chanting, nor what language they were employing, but instinct told me it was something unwholesome. The face of each villager was smeared with blood. Animal, I hope. In the garish light of the bonfire they looked ghastly. Greaves and I halted beneath a large oak, hoping to remain undetected. I suppose we ought not to have lingered, but the repellent rites held a curious fascination. I wanted to see what they were leading up to. The chanting rose in pitch and intensity. Then someone shouted, "He comes!" The cry was taken up by all, a strain to see who they were referring to. I saw nothing until something was appearing atop the fire. Something vast coalescing out of thin air. I watched, stupefied as it became more distinct. It was a creature that haunts my nightmares still. It was partly reptilian, partly amphibian, partly unclassifiable. Its dark skin glistened nauseatingly in the light of the flames which licked at it. It seemed to nourish it. It had numerous limbs, but its most striking feature was that it had 5 heads. Each was eyeless, but featured a gaping, many-toothed mouth from which drool dripped obscenely. My first thought was of the beast in Revelation, the one with 7 heads and 10 horns, or possibly the other way around. I'm not one for sheltering behind the Bible as a rule, but it might have been that thought that kept me sane. The villagers bowed down before the hideous apparition. Then 2 men I'd not observed before emerged from the shadows, bearing a hurdle shoulder high. On it lay a young maiden, dressed in white. The word sacrifice burst in my brain. This was too much. I stepped into the light and said, "I don't know what you all think you're doing, but this is Ballywell." When Greaves roused me, I was pleased to see that I was indoors, lying on a couch. "I'm happy to see you restored to spirits, Mr. Lovecraft," Greaves said. "What happened?" I asked. "What was that?" "Such questions are best postponed, sir," Greaves told me with a meaningful look. I took the hint. I became aware that there was a 3rd person in the room. "This is Mr. Jackson, sir," Greaves said. "He was kind enough to offer shelter for the night." "Well, thank you, Mr. Jackson," I said. Then, unable to stop myself, I asked, "Are we in Wattlesham?" Jackson looked as though I'd said something improper. "Wattlesham?" he said. "No one's lived there for nigh on 200 years. As always, I'm Howard Phillips Lovecraft. Thank you.